Hello, welcome to More Yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you are doing well and ready for some hips. Yay! I thought we would, do all things hip all today and see where we can get into. Now, as always, it's really important when you're doing yoga not to move into zones of pain, right? Always moving within a pain-free range of motion. And I want to work on a little bit of an idea today of backing out of the depth that you think you can go to in order to find more space. And it sounds really counterintuitive. But on Wednesday's class, if you were there for it, or if you've tried it, and I mentioned it briefly, there is this sort of cool thing that can happen if you don't force yourself to go to the full end range of the posture. You can, in fact, get a deeper stretch by backing out slightly. So anyway, all of that being said, it's going to be really, really useful for you today if you have blocks, something that can bring the floor up to you. Now, if you don't have blocks, I guarantee you probably have like book or a couple tins of chickpeas or tomatoes or something like that. Something that is stable and can be used to bring the floor up to you. A coffee table, alternatively, could work really well, or even a stack of pillows or something like that. Unless you are super bendy and can always touch your fingers to the floor while still backing out of the full depth of your range, I really recommend grabbing something for underneath your hands today. All right, let's start lying down. Depending on how your day has been or what time it is for you, even, you might need to take some time to get some wiggles out, right? Maybe take a little windshield wiper of your legs or even a little rock of your head from side to side. Maybe you feel ready to be still right away, in which case, cool. Your knees could be bent. If so, I recommend taking your feet wider than hip width apart and letting your knees hang in toward each other so that you don't have to sort of use any muscular activation to keep the legs steady. You could have your legs extended wherever you need to go. And then once you've found a position that you think will support you in stillness for a little while, then for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more, just like that. And then continue breathing however feels best for you. It could be in and out through your nose or your mouth. And really start to notice how your breath feels today at this moment. Does it feel surprisingly restricted? Does it feel surprisingly open? Does it feel surprisingly normal? Maybe there's no surprise at all in how your breath feels, but I want you to observe it. Follow the path of the inhale and the exhale. Where does your body move as you breathe? And your mind, might start to wander, and the longer we're here, the more likely it will. When you notice that happening, take a second to check in with whatever thought you might be having, but then let it go. And then draw your focus back to your breath. Last few moments here. And when you feel ready to, start to bring a little bit of movement back into your body. Whatever way feels best for you to wake up. Oh, it might be a big yawn. It might be really small movements. Whatever you need. And then start to draw your knees in toward your chest and take a little rock from side to side. Excuse me. And then pause in the center. Take your knees wide out toward your shoulders or out toward your shoulders. And then take a little rock from side to side. Keep your knees bent for the moment. And some of you might want to go straight into a deeper variation of Happy Baby. But right now, just keep it like this. And then one hand on each knee. Start to send your knees down as far away from you as they can and start to draw them together. And then draw them up through the center line of your body and then out, down, and then up through the center line. So a few circles like this, as big of rotations as you can manage while still using the support of your hands on your knees, right? So it's going to be a slightly smaller range of motion potentially for you, but that's part of the backing out of it. Okay, and then opposite rotation. So send the knees away from you, out and up to the shoulders, and then down through the middle line of the body. Last one here. All right, shake out your legs. Let's start to make our way to hands and knees. You might roll to one side and press yourself up, or you might do some playful rock and rolls up and down your spine. But eventually, I mean, you can pause the video and keep playing if you want to, but let's meet on hands and knees whenever you're ready. So knees underneath hips, toes can be tucked or untucked, and then hands outer shoulder width, apart or wider. And let's start to move and breathe here in cat and cow. So inhale, lift your tailbone, hollow through your lower back, broaden through your collarbones. Exhale, tuck your tailbone under, round through the spine. Really press the floor away from you, getting as much rounding as you can. And then inhale, dip into cow. Exhale, round into cat. So a few more of these on your own time, on your own breath. Moving, in fact, any which way that feels good here. I like to take big barrel rolls or wiggle my tail from side to side in the different positions, just getting into all of the tiny little tight places that I can find in my body. So move how you need to move. Last couple breaths here. All right. And then come back to center. I'm going to push that. There we go. Dirty floor. Welcome mat out of my way. And then if you're going to use some padding, go ahead and grab it and bring it underneath your right knee. Because we'll do a little bit of single knee balancing stuff here. All right. And then hands nice and wide, fingers spread wide. Right, a little lift of belly button to spine so you're not arching through your back. And then pick up that left knee. And then similar sort of motion that we did on the floor. Now, working against gravity as we start to do these leg circles. You could go one direction, you could do the other direction, and then start to bring any kind of movement here that feels good. It could be figure eights. I don't really care if your whole body is moving, right? It doesn't need to be an isolated movement. Anything that feels good. Maybe you extend the knee at some point. And then come back to center and extend your left leg behind you. Toes to the floor, and then press the low back up to the sky. Draw your belly button to your spine. Look back, and then lift your feet up. Or your left foot off the floor. Only so much as you can until you can still see maybe those toes. I know sometimes we've got other body parts in the way, but basically what I'm trying to avoid is the dipping of the back, right? So that leg should be straight back behind you from the hip. From here, without dipping into the back, lift your leg up a little bit and then down. So only so far as you can before you feel like you're going to lose the control of the torso, of the core. So it should feel like a squeeze in the bum, right? Starting to work extension at the hip in a really isolated way. Getting into the glutes, the hamstrings. Last one here. All right, shake it all out. Even give your wrists a little break if you wish, and then we'll switch sides. So again, if you're using padding, then bring it underneath your left knee. And then set up with your fingers spread nice and wide. And let's start to take those circles with the right knee now, or leg. One direction and then the other. And then feel free to freestyle. Right, figure eights, big circles, small circles, whatever you need. Right, so just starting to mobilize, waking up the hips. Okay. And then bring your right toes behind you so the leg is extended. And again, make sure you've got activation, right? Draw the belly button to the spine. Press the floor away from you. And then maybe you can look back and see your toes just hovering off the floor. Try not to dip into that low back though. It's really tempting. So think of pressing these low ribs up to the sky. Belly button to spine. And then take little lifts with that right leg, keeping your torso stock still the entire time. So as soon as you dip into the low back, you've gone too far. Right? We just want the extension to be at the hip. And it's natural here for your leg to want to go out to the right a little bit as you lift it up. That's okay. That's part of what Glute Max does. Last one here. All right. Bring both knees to the floor. Shake out your hands, shake out your wrists, shake out your whole bod. And then let's take a little break in child's pose. So knees wide, toes together, and then send your hips back. You could always bring a pillow between your bum and your heels if you wish, or underneath your torso. You could stack your forehead on top of your fist, or maybe your forehead comfortably reaches the earth. A couple breaths just to let your body chill down again, or cool out. Chill out. Oh man, words. Last two breaths here. All right. And then slowly start to press yourself back up to hands and knees to start with. Make sure your hands are outer shoulder width apart or wider. Flare those fingers, grip the mat with the finger pads, tuck your toes. On your exhale, lift the hips up and back into your downward facing dog. And take some time here to pedal out the heels, getting into the calf muscles. You could wag your tail a little bit from side to side. You could come up onto your fingertips. Keep hugging the upper arm bones toward each other. And then bend your knees. Walk your hands back to your feet. It's a little bit of a different movement than we normally do. Standing forward fold. Now, as we do this, I just realized that I've walked you back from your props probably. So maybe grab them if you want blocks underneath your hands, or if you want more support, you could rest your elbows on your knees or your thighs. You could clasp opposite elbows with hands to get more traction through your spine. You could sway a little bit from side to side. Make sure your knees aren't caving in though. That's a pretty natural thing that happens. I want you to think of sending the knees out slightly toward the baby toe edges of the feet. What that does is it fires up the outer hips. It just makes this a more stable position. All right, bend your knees. Walk your hands back or forward, I guess, into your downward facing dog. All right, on your inhale, lift your right leg high into your three-legged dog. As you exhale, step your right foot to your thumb and then release your back knee to the floor. Again, if you're using padding, you might bring something underneath that left knee. And then inhale, come up to half kneeling, back out of the hips right away to start with. Fix your clothes. And then squeeze the bum on the back, like belly button to spine, really tall posture. Maintain all those activations as you start to shift forward into your front knee. So really hard squeeze of the bum on the back leg is going to help open the front of the hip. Right? Your back toes could be tucked or untucked. And you might press your palms away from you to send your torso back, getting even more extension at the hip here. All right, grab hold of the sky with your right hand. So same hand as leg that is forward, and then release your left hand to the earth, more or less in line with your front heel. And then rotate or wrap both shoulders onto your back as you twist to the front knee. You could sink through the hips a little bit more here or back out of them, whatever feels good for you. Maybe you take big sweeping shapes with that top arm. This is a great place to bring your hand onto a block. It's going to give you a little bit more space. All right. And then on your inhale, unwind back to center, and then shift your hips back as you extend through the front leg for your half splits. Whew. It can be wobbly. So maybe you have a hand on the wall or hands on hips, or maybe you have blocks or your chickpeas, or maybe your fingers comfortably reach the earth. But remember, I want you to try to back out slightly of the full depth that you would normally go to. And even if you've slid all the way forward into full split, I want you to back out just ever so slightly. All right, belly button to spine. Wrap the back hip forward. Draw the front hip back. And then flare the toes on the front foot. Peel them back toward your face even more. Getting into the calf muscles as well as your hamstrings. And make sure there's a micro bend or even a deep bend on this front knee. You don't want to jam that knee out, trust me. All right, on your inhale, start to come forward into that front knee again, and then bring both hands inside your front foot. So heel and toe the front foot out wider and on an angle. So your toes could be off the edge of your mat. From here, allow your hips to shift forward without just hanging out, right? So feel a little hug of the legs back to the center line. Some of you might stay here. Some of you might come down onto forearms. Back knee could be up or down. And go wherever you need to go, right? Maybe you can bring your forearms to a block, right? Giving yourself just that little bit of extra space. And then I want you to think of trying to drag your front heel back toward you slightly. Now your foot's not going to move, but you'll feel that activation. All right, if your back knee is lifted, release it to the floor, back out of the hips a little bit. And then On your inhale, reach the right arm up to the sky. As you exhale, reach it forward. So I like to call this sort of Spider-Man, like he's trying to climb up the wall. Inhale, open. Exhale, reach. One more time. And then pause here for a couple breaths. Maybe you walk both hands forward. Maybe you need to back out of it a little bit. Right? It's a little bit different from where we just were. Back knee could be down or up. Last breath. All right, slowly back out of the hips. And in fact, you're going to start to send them back as you extend through the front leg. Now I'm going to turn to face you so you can really see where we're going. It's a wide leg, half splits. So you might need to take that front leg out even wider from where it is. You can back out of the hips all the way to start with if you want to. Wrap the left hip forward, draw the right hip back, and then think of it as a hip hinge. Send the hips back a little bit or a lot. This is where these blocks are going to come in handy. All right, maybe your fingertips are on the floor. Maybe you have a deeper variation, in which case feel free to slide out with that front leg. But I want to microbend on that front knee and the toes peeling back toward the face. And there's a tendency to really want to reach that hip forward. So keep wrapping that front hip, that right hip rather, back. Last couple of breaths here. You're getting hamstrings, you're getting adductors, you're getting calves. It's a good one. All right, slowly back out of the hips. You can heel and toe or just sweep that right knee underneath you. And then a little wiggle or shake or cat and cow. I might as well just stay facing the camera. All right, let's do all that on the opposite side. Wait, we came in from downward facing dog, didn't we? Yeah, okay, let's go back to downward facing dog. And you want to make sure you balance out the movements on both sides. All right, on your inhale, lift the left leg high. And then exhale, step your left foot to your left thumb, and then gently release your back knee to the floor. Again, if you're using padding, and you might bring some padding underneath that right knee, and then back out of the hips, right? Hug the legs toward each other, really squeeze the bum. Nice tall posture. Maintain all that as you start to shift forward into that front knee. Hard squeeze of the bum on the back leg, right? The more that you squeeze the bum, the more you're going to get into those hip flexors, and you can feel that, right? I don't have to tell you that. But it's by backing out of the depth of the sort of yoga variation of this lunge that we can get a deeper opening of the hip flexors. All right. Grab hold of the sky with your left hand. Exhale, bring the right hands to the earth. Again, more or less in line with that front heel. And then rotate, twist to the front knee. You might take big sweeping shapes with the top arm, opening into the shoulder. Make sure the bottom shoulder in particular isn't jutting forward. Wrap it onto your back. All right, and then slowly unwind. Shift your hips back as you extend through your front leg for your half splits. Different side can be a totally different experience. So go where you need to go. Maybe you have a hand on the wall or hands on hips. If hands on hips feels really wobbly for you, but you can't get your fingers to the floor, bend this knee a little bit more. That's going to give you more space, but also more stability. Okay, wrap the right hip forward, draw the left hip back. If you've slid out into a fuller variation of splits, awesome. Just make sure that front knee is micro bent. And then flare the toes on the front foot. Peel them back toward your face even more. I think probably my foot is out of the shot right now, but the toes are peeling back. Last couple breaths here. All right. And then slowly ripple forward again into your front knee. I'm going to spin this so I have space. And then heel into the front foot out wider and on an angle. Again, so your toes are off the edge of your mat. And then allow the hips to shift forward, but don't just hang out, right? Feel that little hug of your legs back to the center line. And you might stay up tall here on your hands. Maybe you come down to your forearms. Back knee could be up or down. And a different side might feel like, maybe you can go a little bit deeper, maybe you go a little bit shallower. And then imagine that you're trying to drag that front heel back toward you. Last breath here. All right, slowly back out of the hips. And then let's go into our sort of Spider-Man reach. Inhale, lift the left arm high. Exhale, reach it forward with the front foot. Inhale, up. Exhale, reach. One more time, inhale, up. Exhale, reach, and then pause. Maybe you stay here. Maybe you walk both hands forward. Maybe your back knee is up. Maybe you need to back out of it a little bit. Right? Go where it feels best for you. Last breath here. All right, slowly back out of the hips and then shift them back as you extend through the front leg for your wide half splits. Again, I'm going to spin to face you. So your hips go back as the torso hinges forward a little bit, right? Left leg is out to the side. It could be quite further forward. It could be out quite wide. I want you to wrap the right hip forward. Draw the left hip back. Right? It's almost like you're trying to socket this femur back into the hip. Maybe you have hands on blocks. Maybe you've slid out into a deeper variation. Maybe you've got hands on hips or a wall. And go where it feels best for you. It might not feel good, but at least it's the better variation. Last breath here. And then slowly back out of the hips. Swing your left knee underneath you. Hands and knees. Little wiggle or shake or cat and cow. And then come to a seated position, unless you would prefer to end on your back, in which case go ahead and lie down. Wherever you are, we're going to take just a very simple, pretty quick twist from one side to the other. So if you're on your back, you know where you need to go. If you're with me seated, then reach your arms up to the sky. Exhale, twist to the left. So the right hand comes forward, left hand comes back. You could press the left fingertips into the floor so that you find more lift, more length through the spine. Keep wrapping this right hip back. It'll want to sneak forward. All right, and then inhale, come back to center. Exhale, twist the opposite way. So left hand forward, right hand back. Again, you might press the fingertips on your right hand into the floor behind you to find more lift. Keep wrapping the left hip back in line. And then slowly on your inhale, come back to center, shake everything out. And then final resting pose. You can be here in a seated meditation if you wish. You could lie down on your back, go wherever you need to go. And there's no rush to get there. But once you've found your final resting pose, for a few breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then let go of your breath control. Return to your natural breath, slow and sweet. Let go of any last muscle gripping or tension, particularly in the neck or the jaw. With every exhale, let your body melt a little bit deeper into the earth. And thoughts may come and go. Acknowledge them without judgment, but let them go. Let them drift by you like leaves on the wind. And stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.